Hello, Toronto drivers, cyclists, commuters, and city planners and stuff. So recently I made this video uh, about all of the barriers to cycling in Ward 5, in this whole ward. And one of the things that right at the beginning of this video, I uh, I complained that this portion of Eglinton, it was supposed to get a cycling facility, and it hasn't, and they're probably not going to do it, and blah, blah. And then I had to update it, you know, because I was wrong. Like right after I made this video, the work that they were doing, where to me it looked like they were putting in the LRT here, and therefore the bike lane would not happen. They were actually building the bike lane, and it has turned out exactly as the transportation services people said it would a few years ago when they met with us, when they met with what was the Ward 11 Pedestrian Safety and Cycling Committee. We had this awesome meeting where they unloaded all their plans on us, and this is one of the ones that I was real excited about. Making this path connecting Jane with Piran Park. I think that's Piran Park. And it was, this complicated kind of procedure of like some of the bike lanes along Eglinton were going to be done by Metrolinx during their LRT construction. Some of it was going to be done by the city. And so I don't know what kind of mix this portion is or what kind of mix this other portion is, but so anyway, me and Doug Waddell from the Toronto Cycling Facebook page, we have both been checking back on this spot, taking photos and stuff like that. He's been getting all these nice photos of like this portion where it goes from Weston to Keele, and I've been posting all these photos of Eglinton, but I whipped out my terrible old GoPro Hero 2, strapped it to my bike in the worst possible way, and every time I go over a bump or something like that, it smashes around. So I managed to get video of what this looks like. But first, I want to just waste some time talking about how great this is because it allows you to avoid doing this route, which was like the most viable way to avoid Eglinton, and it still didn't really work because you'd still have to like either use the sidewalk. Just thinking about it makes me feel tired. I just want to sigh, and whatever. So there's always been, I mean, as long as I know, and I want to know the story behind this, but there's always been this bike path that goes along Eglinton up to Jane, and it just stops. And I guess it's been a great way to get from all of these neighborhoods over here, basically all the way up to the airport, to and from Eglinton Flats, and then walk your bike up Eglinton, and then you can sort of get around to this neighborhood. And just as a side note, because I just love the suspense, all the way over here somewhere where Eglinton goes into, I guess, Mississauga, they put this really, really kick-ass facility on the sort of northwest side of Eglinton. So now you can just do this. It's like super windy. Any weekday, it's going to be a total gas chamber because of all these highways and stuff like that, and the airport itself, which generates a lot of pollution. But I've been doing these wonderful Sunday rides to the Etobicoke Creek, which is a really lovely bike ride. And if you do have a nice gas mask, this would, this makes a pretty good cycling route around these communities. But up until now, in order to get to this whole area or connect with the York Beltline Trail, you'd have to do either this route or, now that the Scarlet Road bike lanes have gotten in, you could take Scarlet Road as long as it's not the winter time, because the Scarlet bike lanes don't connect all the way to Eglinton. So you got to use the Humber path. But you could use the Humber path again, as long as you don't mind, summer afternoons or whenever in the summer when the path is totally full of pedestrians. You could totally use that to get to Scarlet. And then I guess if you've got some really good easy gears, you can go up east and then go through here and then go along here and hoof it up this hill, and it's a bunch of extra hills and stuff, but I mean, I guess it's not extra hills, but it's like the steepest possible way to get through those hills. So this was the route that you would have to take as a cyclist. I mean, unless you wanted to, be in this lane right next to all this extra space where there's tons of room for a bike lane, but they didn't have one. Unless you wanted to actually just use Eglinton, which lots of people did on a bike, but, not that many people. It's not like it was ever popular. Deal with all the super friendly drivers. Yeah. This is the crazy, crazy, crazy route that you'd have to take. Look, 41 minutes to get from the Eglinton path here over to the York Beltline Trail. 9 kilometers instead of almost 6 kilometers that it would take in a drive. 40 minutes instead of 24 minutes that would take if you could just bike it. But now you can actually just bike it in 24 minutes. Incredible. Because, yeah, they've got a cycling facility going up Eglinton to Piran Park along the north side of it. And they got a two-way, which is like nice wide two-way path. You'll see it. And then it picks up again on Weston, goes to Black Creek Drive. Then it turns into 2 one-way narrow bike lanes on either side of the road, goes all the way to Keele. And that's it for now. But it'll be part of the Eglinton bike lanes. And already just going to Keele is super useful for cyclists, because now you can do, you can't really go up Keele there. I mean, of course you can, if you really want to. But this is the route that you'd want to take if you want to keep going east. And it's still only an extra couple of minutes. So it was a 40-minute crazy bike ride. You'd have to go through Trethewey. It absolutely sucked, although Trethewey, they say, at some point, might be getting a bike lane. And now when they say that, because of this Eglinton thing, I kind of believe them. Like, well, it'll probably, take several years longer than they claim it will, but at some point on Trethewey, this person might actually be able to stop breaking the law in order to avoid. Like in this picture, there's probably only 2 of these drivers that are actually going to mess with cyclists when we're trying to use the road. Almost all the drivers are so great, but all it takes is, 2 out of all these drivers, as a percentage, as a ratio, maybe 3, equates to you getting your right of way totally violated every couple minutes if you're just using Trethewey. And as you can see, Trethewey is like, I don't know what they were planning for. They were planning for people doing a hell of a lot more driving than they actually do, because Trethewey is never full. It's got so much extra capacity. So I was so discouraged, you know. But now I'm so encouraged because we have this awesome bikeway. So without further ado, here's my terrible footage of me cycling on this path. So this is lovely Eglinton, the way it always has been. And I want to ask the councillor, like, the story behind how this path came to be. So that's probably an epic tale. So this is going east to Eglinton and Jane, past the golf course. They just finished the construction. So you're going to see it's, you know, it's a little bit disorderly. It's a little bit messy. It seems like on the last day of construction, you know, they just barely got finished with it in time for quitting time, and then they were like, oh guys, we got to get out of here. And they kind of left everything as it was. So this is, like, in order to get to that bus stop from here to get there, it's, you know, it's a bit of a journey. Like, there is no way to do it without actually going over the tape or something. I love this city so much because stuff just becomes so crazy like this. So the whole thing, it's taped up like a crime scene. Those are my brakes crying out in the somewhat wet weather. So what they've done is they've done, this is apparently Toronto's first protected intersection. And it's kind of protected. I think they're going to restripe they're going to replace the zebra crossings. But check out this funky, they call it an apron. And it's just this, like, part of the road. They wanted to make the turning radius less generous without actually blocking it off. So they compromise and make this, call it an apron. So I don't know, I guess it's this kind of buffer zone where they expect nobody to stand but nobody to drive, but like an 18-wheeler can still gracefully make a turn or something. So that's like an actual protected intersection has barriers projecting out into the intersection. This doesn't really need that because the cycling spots aren't really in the intersection except where they cross over, but curious to see how it works in practice. I mean, I used it kind of in practice, but I'm going to be observing the other cyclists there. So you can see there's these little things here where I presume they are going to put a fence. But look at that beautiful, nice, wide, beefy bike lane with a nice sidewalk next to it. I hope this is the shape of things to come. And check it out, the guardrails are actually between the drivers and the sidewalk, instead of being like between the sidewalk and the... It's funny, on Jane there's these parts where they got the guardrails taking up what should be sidewalk space between the sidewalk and the trees to, I guess, protect drivers from the trees. But there's... Anyway, so this is where it goes into Pier and Park, and they just kind of left up the fence. There was this gap right on the left there for a while where you could go through, but they closed up the gap, so now you got to go across this part where they're seating it up. Now you can see how kick-ass my mounting bracket is. There's no real indication why the fence is still up, but I don't know. So before I show you the funky route that you got to take for now, right? For now, and like temporary means, you know, it could be years, it could be 1 year, it could be however long. I think basically that this is the part that the city was responsible for, so they did it on their schedule. And then this is the part that Metrolinx is responsible for, or just like right here is the part that Metrolinx is responsible for, or the city is, I don't know, whatever. So anyway, right now, the gap is between here and here. And this was always the plan just because this is so narrow and everybody's fighting for this space so much. So between all the different combatants for this space, they chose to not run the LRT through here. They chose to not run the bike lane through here. They chose to just let the drivers keep these 4 lanes. Because why cinch drivers down to 3 lanes just for like 1 block? Just so that cyclists don't have to go through this park or something. And so basically the bike lane is going to resume right here and keep going. So this little portion of it right here, from here to here, is the only unfinished spot. So cyclists are going to be expected to go through here, past Piran Park, along Piran, and continue on there. I totally think that's fine. Some people are like, oh, I can't believe it. You're making us bike on this side street. The wayfinding signage better be excellent because... And it's just all about this one little section where Eglinton is so narrow. But what it means is they're going to apparently, I mean, I've been told this is the plan. You know, plans can change. Things happen. But the next time this driver comes through here after a certain point, they're going to have to go around here because this is going to turn into the bike lane. Drivers, I'm so sorry, but this one part where every single time I come through here, there is nobody needing to drive here. This one, and you can see in the winter, the snow doesn't get pushed out of here because nobody needs to drive here. The city has realized in their wisdom that drivers do not need this extra lane here, and cyclists do. So the bike lane will go through here. But for now, for right now, and until that happens, cyclists going east basically have to go through here along Weston here and then get onto the bike lane right there. And going west, you can just use this spot because it's fine. It's not a super chore. So again, this is going past Piran Park on the way to... This is the future route that you will be able to take. But I also did this kind of detour to show off where the route might have gone through Piran Park. Like, they were thinking about maybe putting it along here. But it was just so narrow, they were going to have to, like, move the playground and stuff like that. And the footage turned out so crappy that this is like unwatchable. But this was going to be maybe one of the optional routes of the bike lane. be going past here. And you can see, like, yeah, it would have gone right past the kids' playground, or they would have had to move that. It's a really nice playground, and it's all new and stuff like that, and maybe it could connect this path. I really think that the route that they chose was the superior choice, and I'm satisfied with that. I'm happy about that. So this is where the bike lane is going to go to, and we will eventually be able to just get on the bike lane from here, continue on our merry way. But for now, for right now, you're going to have to get onto Weston up in here. And really this portion of Weston is not so bad for cycling because there's intermittent parking on both sides. I don't know if it disappears during rush hour or what, I keep forgetting, but you can see the amount of space that's left over when there is parking is conducive for cycling. And the councillor has assured us there will be no bike lanes on Weston up in here if she has anything to say about it anytime soon, because far away from here, Weston connects with the highway. But there's no alternative route that allows you to avoid Weston. So right now, no bike lanes on Weston basically means no cycling north and south through this part of the ward, unless you're really good at climbing very steep hills, because you got to use the hill on Rockcliffe. And that's a bit crazy, but Weston will probably at some point get a bike lane. But that's the tiny little stretch of Weston that you have to use right now to bridge this gap. It's not a huge deal. It's so short that if you're intimidated by cycling on Weston, you can just walk it, and then you get onto this beautiful cycling facility and check it out. It's the LRT station. This is where it goes under the tracks, and there'll be guardrails here, but you can see they already put this up. You can fall through that, though. So it'll be good when they get the guardrails up for all the people who are just going to end up like using that as a jump or something. Right along here, there's actually this crossing spot, and I showed off on my way back, but I didn't notice it. But there is a spot where I think there's going to be a crosswalk. On the right here, you can see the York Recreation Centre. Check out this fence. They left the whole thing kind of artificially impassable. It really looks like they're like, all right, guys, we're not going to be able to clean this up, but Doug keeps showing up asking questions, and so let's just try and finish this up. We're not going to be able to clean up, but let's finish it up, and we'll leave. And so, you know, if you're cycling along this, just use caution because there's random stuff everywhere. So this is the York Rec Centre. This has been totally inaccessible to cyclists for as long as it has been there. Because it's illegal to use your bike to go along Black Creek Drive, even though there's space for bike lanes on each side, and it's probably going to get bike lanes in the future. I think the official plan is actually to put bike lanes along the side of Black Creek Drive in the future. But now, for cyclists, the York Rec Centre exists finally. So this, again, the part of the place that cyclists are expected to cross does go across the zebra crossings, and the zebra crossings are probably going to be like redone or replaced or something. But anyway, for now, you just cross over this part. And so here is the bike lane that it becomes. Now, you may be wondering from the footage, how wide is this bike lane? I can assure you it's not wide enough for one cyclist to pass another, so this is going to be like cycling on Bloor, where you better use this one spot here to pass whatever slow cyclists are in front of you, because from here to Keele and probably all the way along the rest of Eglinton, you're going to be trapped behind the slowest cyclist. And I hope they set it up so that at the intersections there's enough space for faster cyclists to pass slower cyclists. Because, like, it sucks being, when I'm on Bloor and I'm just having a slow day, I'm just chilling, and I'm doing like 15 kph, and I'm slowing people down. I don't notice it because I'm all, enjoying the scenery or whatever. And it sucks being behind those people when I'm actually trying to get across the city, and drivers freak out about cyclists using the driving lanes to pass the slower cyclists and whatever, but this is going to be one of those lanes. And so this is why I like the two-way bike lanes on one side of these streets, especially these super long blocks where there's not a hell of a lot of driveways, but this is like an eternal debate amongst cyclists and everybody else. The two-way bikeways versus the one-way bikeways. And I say, unless you're going to make one-way bikeways that are wide enough for cyclists to pass each other, just do a two-way one. And no matter what kind of bike lanes you have, well, that's where it goes up to Keele and then comes back. No matter what kind of bike lanes you have, people complain about on a two-way bike lane, it's hard for drivers to turn across it. But if they have either if they have a exclusive turning lane, or there's parking next to the bike lane so that in the intersection they have a spot where they can stage their turns, as in sit there and wait for it to clear. Check this out. Look at this. Okay, hang on, I'm going to finish my thought. If they're crossing a bike lane, the drivers, and they've got a space to stop and be out of the way of the other drivers while they're waiting for the bike lane to clear so that they can turn across it, then it's cool. If they've got to be driving along next to the bike lane, blocking the other drivers while they're waiting to turn across it, then it sucks no matter what kind of bike lane it is. And so this is why I think they should just pick one side of the road for two-way bike lanes and the parking next to it, and then have the other side of the road for the two directions of driving traffic, instead of trying to do bike lanes on both sides and parking on both sides and whatever and blah, blah, blah. So check it out, this sign placement. That is comedy right there. That is totally comedy. Clearly these lanes are not ready for public consumption. Okay, so this is the spot where, like, they start making big time mistakes. This is a massive mistake. This is sketchy to have the bike lane crossing over the right turn lane. This is sketchy enough downtown on roads like Bloor, where the driving speeds are like 40. The driving speeds here are like, well, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. So this is kind of unacceptable here. And also, it doesn't make any sense because the bike lane could have just gone right up onto the side, I think. Like, right here, they could have just had the right turn lane right there, like going through here and ending up there, and had the bike lane going onto the side here next to the sidewalk, because the destination bike lane is on the sidewalk on the other side. So there really is no reason for it to be here. I hope that this is part of the temporariness, or maybe it's not, but they could have just run the curb up to here had this spot here as the vehicular right turn lane, had the cycling crossing point next to the pedestrian crossing point, but instead they expect us to cross paths with the drivers who are doing 80 getting ready to go around this corner, or doing 70 or doing 60 getting ready to go around this corner. And so right here where I was sitting, I don't know, there's some cyclists that won't make it to this point. They'll die. Unfortunately, my friends, we're going to lose a couple of cyclists on this corner until they finally change it. This is just my warning to the city. They probably already know this one spot is going to kill a couple people. Rip, but it's no big deal because, you know, we're all learning, right? It's all a learning experience. There's no way that they could know that that would be dangerous infrastructure because we're just inventing the wheel from the very beginning. That's really the only place along this whole thing, aside from those other bike lanes being, you know, it should just all be a nice wide two-way bike lane instead of them breaking it up into two super narrow one-way bike lanes on either side of the road. Apart from that ridiculousness, this part here is the only part of this whole thing that seems like they're trying to kill cyclists, or that seems like it sucks to an unnecessarily heightened extent. The rest of it is totally dope. So check it out right here. I was distracted by this. I stopped to try and close this door. Wasn't able to. But right here where the snow frills is, which is the snow frills. Like, I haven't been to the snow frills in so long, because in order to get to it, you have to go through the Valley of the Shadow of Death as a cyclist, as in Black Creek Drive. Now, the snow frills can be part of the lives of cyclists. So it's not just all about the food basics further to the west here. Now cyclists can go shopping at the snow frills. And there is going to be this crossing right here, because check it out, they've got a curb cut. So I don't know if they're going to run a crossing across with lights, or maybe, I don't know, some kind of thing, or if this is just for cyclists to be able to cross along this whole thing anytime Eglinton is clear or what, but that is going to allow people access to and from that no-frills. And from the road that's behind the no-frills. And for now, cyclists in this area can actually relieve themselves at this porta potty. You're never going to be able to do this in the future. You're going to have to go through this whole area without having any place to relieve yourselves, except along Black Creek there's some trees and stuff like that. But you can count on there being no public washrooms anyway through here, so use the porta potty while you can. You'll be breaking the law, but you gotta do what you gotta do. So this is just, I turned around and went the other way, obviously. This brings up a lot of memories for me. I used to go to really kick-ass illegal parties at the Kodak factory here, which is what they turned into the station. And so it is so trippy to see it all lit up. I used to have some graffiti in there, it was pretty cool. And they actually moved this building 50 meters to get it to where it is now. It used to be surrounded by a beautiful forest, and there was a pond there, and it was a really cool place to go hang out. There was like this abandoned house near it. It was a really fun, trippy place to go visit. Of course, now they're making good use of it as a transportation facility, and I was so happy to hear that they were going to do that with this beautiful old building. It used to be the old Kodak factory, It's an interesting piece of Toronto's corporate history, and I can't wait to see the inside of it. It's beautiful. It's got this big old school double stairway going up through the foyer. It's just lovely. So I'm really glad that they kept that. And I'll be really happy to visit it without trespassing. So this is going across Weston. This is the route that cyclists are eventually going to be able to take. This is where the bike lane is going to go. And you can pretty much safely do this already. Of course, during those couple spots where I was passing over the pedestrian islands, I did get off my bike and walk it, and you just can't tell because I'm so smooth about doing that. I certainly wasn't cycling through that whole space. I would never do that out of consideration for all the pedestrians that were using that space, because it's such a pleasant place to be as a pedestrian. It's not like it's been designed to punish anyone for not driving or anything like that. So. And so this is going back the other way around Piran Park. Where the bikeway starts. I really got to secure this camera better, but I'm impressed with its low light performance. This is the GoPro Hero 2. I bought it years and years ago. It's utter garbage, but still, this is like, it's dusk at this point. It's super dark, and the color is pretty good. This is how you get on the bike lane right now. I don't know when they're going to take the fencing down. I don't know when they're going to take all the obstacles out of the lane. I think, let's see, there's the sign that's in the lane, there's the fencing that's in the lane and also hard to see at Black Creek. There's the caution tape blocking off both the bike lane and the bus stop in two different places. So there's 4 weird obstacles from their incomplete cleanup that are there as of Sunday. This is when I took this video. Hopefully that's all gone now, because they've had a couple of weekdays to deal with it. But even with that stuff there, this is still already very usable. It's so exciting. I can't tell you how many times I've noticed people saying, how the hell do I get from Eglinton Flats to the Beltline Trail or to Weston Road, and why is this gap still here? And I've gone on Facebook to answer them saying like, I know, yeah, we have no explanation. So this is the weird apron. I think this is completed. When I checked it out before, I thought, okay, certainly they're not going to leave it like this because this is mega weird. There's kind of 3 elements to this. There's like the sort of tear-shaped spot where it's behind the curb, and they've got drivers going to turn like this way, cyclists going to like turn this way. So, I mean, the drivers and the cyclists are kind of perpendicular when they're crossing each other's paths, which is one of the goals. There's a curb separating the spot where the cyclists can hang out waiting to cross from the spot where the drivers are either turning or hanging out waiting for the cyclists to cross so they can turn. And then there's this like extra apron thing. So I think the intention here is to get drivers to go across at a lower speed because they're going to be turning a tighter corner here, but the vehicles that do need a wider turning radius, like the big transport trucks and stuff like that, won't be running over the curb because the curb is here. And I guess the people who fall in between those two groups are the crazy weirdo 1 in 10, 1 in 20 drivers who want to be sketchy and weird, and they'll just screech around these corners. Some of those people have incredibly well-performing tires, and they can do amazing things. And they've got like the suspension that allows them to slam over the speed bumps at 50 kph, and their cars are just these high-performance machines. Sort of the car version of my bike. My bike is extremely high performance. I really enjoy it. So this whole thing is blocked off by caution tape, or at least it was on Sunday. And yeah, again, the zebra striping spots are kind of in the weird place. There seems to be no extra curb cut for pedestrians. So I guess this is a multi-use path, and the pedestrians will be crossing on the path? Probably. I circled around just to show that this transit stop here is completely blocked off by the caution tape, which is, it's fine. It's not a huge deal. It's just kind of funny. I mean, honestly, for people who are super old or who have difficulty moving around, I recommend bringing scissors. You know, this is probably all gone now. This is probably just like this for the weekend, which is not a huge deal, but I just found it funny. You know, I could have brought scissors. They could have spent an extra 5-10 minutes removing the caution tape, but I'm not really joking when I say I kind of love this about Toronto, that things are done in this kind of weird, rough way, but done extremely well at the same time. Like, that bike lane is awesome. It is so beefy, except for, you know, a couple places where I mentioned and it turning into a couple of narrow lanes. It is awesome. I really want to thank the councillor, Francis Nunziata. I really want to thank the traffic services people, Barbara Gray and her crew, and I want to thank everybody who consulted on this. Speaking of which, in the pedestrian safety and cycling group, I don't think that we actually did consult on this. We were basically told it was going to happen, and a few of us were like, oh, excellent. And it happened, and we could have participated more with the Metrolinx discussion and with CycleTO and with the city in terms of the specifics of their design for this spot. So we might have done a better job in our consultations with them. So I think we have failed in that way, but our failure has still allowed for a pretty good piece of infrastructure to go through here, and super happy to see it. Like I say, it's going to be part of a wonderful citywide cycling route on Eglinton, but it's already a very useful route that plugs up this terrible, terrible, terrible gap between the west end of the this trail here. It's not just about the York Beltline Trail. Castlefield is actually a good cycling route in its own right, and at a certain point, it turns into Roselawn, which is an excellent east-west cycling route. So, like, I've done this route both staying on Castlefield and also getting onto the York Beltline Trail. Both versions of it are excellent. So basically, cycling in this whole area is great. Cycling in this whole area is pretty good. It's not so bad. It's all right. Cycling in this whole area is, you know, there's some problems with it, but there's all these nice side streets where it's great. and it's decent, you know. Cycling in this whole area, well, this trail makes it pretty awesome. The problem has always been just this section here, like this section here and this section here, and now that problem is basically just simply gone. So thanks so much to everybody who had a hand in this, including the construction crews and everything like that. And I look forward to seeing my fellow commuters on this route. It's excellent. It doesn't disrupt the driving situation at all. It greatly enhances the cycling situation. And now I'm just going to say I'm really happy that I do not have to... like, I low-key was planning on making my own path along here, either by... I was trying to figure out how. I was thinking, like, okay, I'm going to do some guerrilla road maintenance action and go along here with some kind of tool at nighttime and break up the grass and put in some gravel and whatever. And every time a car comes along, I'm going to scurry off into the woods and blah, blah, blah. I was thinking of doing it like that. I was thinking of just cycling up and down this hill over and over and over again, because there's already kind of a path there. But if I kept cycling up and down over and over, then it would kind of form a path, and then I could put some gravel in my backpack and get it to sort of drop out and bike up and down, and that way I could do this whole thing unobtrusively without anybody realizing that I was actually modifying the road quite illegally. And of course I didn't do any of that stuff because, like, it's legal to think about doing illegal stuff. It's not illegal to talk about some, you know, I was thinking, like, okay, who can I wrangle to help me with this thing? But that would have been conspiracy to commit a crime. So we both would have been guilty of a crime just by talking about it. But I was finally getting to the point where I was like, okay, you know what? I might do this. It might be time to become a criminal. And then they put this in. And unfortunately, they took out, I don't know, when this picture was taken in 2019, this is the year that all of this was supposed to be done, and instead they planted a row of trees up here. So they spent all this money planting these trees, and they were like, well, no, maybe we'll just run the subway along here, or maybe we'll just run the bike lane along here. And, like, they could have run the bike lane and the sidewalk along here without removing any of those trees. But now those trees are gone. So, yeah, I'm just glad I didn't have to go and try and do this myself, because it would have been an okay path. You know, it would have been, like, doable. But, you know, it's nice not to be a vandal. It's nice not to be a criminal, especially when, like, I was actually considering doing this as a crime, just to allow myself and the other cyclists access to this hill, because it was getting so ridiculous. I was thinking, like, well, I could contact the press and discuss it with them, call them and the police and say, I'm planning on doing this as an act of civil disobedience, come and arrest me, and the press should come and videotape the arrest of me. Like, that's how ridiculous some of this stuff is, you know, activists like me end up planning crazy, crazy, crazy stuff. And it really was getting to the point where I was thinking about actually doing this, and then they started the actual work. So thank you so much to the city for doing this. And yeah, I'll see y'all out there.